week or so, I'll probably,
It's right
you know,
here
be
on
trying to
Jack
put,
Farm Road.
I just told the landowner,
It's
I
right here,
said,
it's right here,
before
that
we
corner
do
there?
right
anything,
in that corner.
I don't want this to be an
This
issue.
ditch
before
right
we-
here,
Yeah,
that's the
Yeah.
Montana
So I wanna
ditch.
settle
Okay.
this before we do anything.
Well, I can do a little looking on it, without having seen it, that'd be the best way to know. is to see what they have.
Yeah, well, I just thought.
Can I ask a question? Since we've never had a meeting like this before, do we have to call it to order and take minutes and all of that, Jazz?
Yes.
Okay. And all volunteers tribute. Oh, and it will be short and sweet.
Thank you. That's nice of you.
Another question, we don't really have a chair for this meeting, or since you're the commission chair, do you act as chair on this
You can
committee?
act as chair.
It's actually officially a commission
It is,
meeting,
okay.
so therefore you would be the one in charge.
Okay, so we'll turn it over to Nicole. Call the
Perfect.
meeting to order and turn it over to Nicole
Easy peasy.
for the Walsh family land transfer.
So, we've all seen this, I've emailed it to all of you. The Walsh family is transferring tract A on your COS there. They're transferring tract A to their daughter, Nikki Greer, is the intention. However, I happen to know that there is, people living out there that are not related to the Walshes in a home that is also not the Walshes. It's a mobile home.
and that's the one down in the corner there you're talking about?
Correct.
On Track Day?
It's on track day?
On track day, and that's the gift piece. And the fact that, you know, they are gifting it to their daughter, but their daughter doesn't own the mobile home. And the title company has asked when they can close on the sale of it for someone not related to the Walshes.
And on the title, will it say Nikki Greer, or is it gonna be somebody else?
Probably some, well, John Walsh filed a deed, so it's not illegal to file a deed before you file this. According to the clerk and recorder's office, they have to file any legally recordable document. So I emailed you this warranty deed where, I don't know, yeah, it was both John and Janice were deeding this tract A to their daughter Nikki Greer before it was even created.
So are you, the one that was in 2015? Which,
Nope, right here, September, 2018. They filed that deed on this piece of property, tract A, even though tract A is not actually recorded yet. In my opinion, for what it's worth, is that this is clearly evasion.
well, so this is a warranty deed. This is them receiving the property. This is November 2006. AFF Services, Inc., granting or selling to John and Janice Walsh and Jason and Robin Benner, the grantees, and it's tract A. That's November 9th, 2006,
Right?
and it
That
wasn't
was-
recorded until September of 2018.
So I don't know. Okay, so this is not the one that I meant to print out. Sorry.
So there's another one.
Yes, that was
No.
John and Janice to Nikki Greer. I hope that I have the right documents to bring here. I also have their affidavit stating that they won't sell it for 2 years.
But they've already sold it.
They,
Well, they're hoping to sell it. They're waiting to close on the sale of it.
Well, okay. It's, where's the, cause I've got all these documents that you emailed us. I'm not seeing the deed that you're referring to.
Maybe I got the wrong, I had Ann send me the deed, and maybe I just sent the wrong one. I'll have to look at it with Ann, I guess. I can't pull that up on my email.
So what does the second deed purport to do?
To sell this tract A to Nikki Greer, or to transfer tract A to Nikki Greer. I guess even without the deed though, this just seems to be evasion to me. And also I had a phone conversation with Nikki Greer. And you know, Nikki Greer being their daughter, she said, you know, it was her intention to buy this from her parents, and then something happened with her husband's job. She decided not to come up here. So they have a buyer on the line waiting to build there. And they said, so then it's actually a subdivision. She said, yes, this is not a family transfer. It's a subdivision. We went over the subdivision fees, and she said, oh my gosh, my parents cannot afford that. They'll never be able to afford that. And she said she needed to think about it. A little while later, she sent me an email and said, we're moving forward with the family transfer. Please send me the affidavit documents.
and she lives in Colorado.
Colorado,
Correct.
yeah.
The mobile home and the septic tank are already there being occupied and being used.
Correct.
By whom?
Mackenzie Gifford, and I don't know her wife's name.
Carolyn.
There you go, okay.
And are they buying or are they leasing? Because this says, the affidavit says one parcel is being retained with current owner, second parcel is being leased.
I don't know if they're buying or leasing. I don't have any idea. That side of it. I know that they are on tract A.
They are? Okay. Who is,
Where it says mobile home.
remind me of who Jason and Robin Benner are?
That's their other daughter. Robin is John and Janice Walsh's other daughter.
Or the Walshes and the Benners are on track C, and then this
Correct.
other gal's on track A.
Correct. Thank you. That's the one I was looking for. Thank you.
So this so-called shared driveway, or whatever this thing is this 15-foot easement is servicing 3 residents.
And I haven't given them an address for their mobile, so I don't know what they're using. You know, for McKinsey or for the Giffords, I don't know what they're using for an address on this mobile home. I don't have it on my map. No one's requested an address. If they were to request an address outside of subdivision, they would have to name this driveway. However, going through subdivision, and the reason I would have to have them name it, there would be no mechanism outside of subdivision for me to force them to improve this to a road. However, if they go through subdivision, they'll have to build it to a road, or someone's going to have to change their driveway.
So this original warranty deed has it going to John and Janice Walsh and Jason and Robin Benner. And the tract of land is exactly the same as this tract A, 11.9 acres. Right? And I don't see is there another document in the chain of title that gets rid of the interest that the Benners have in it? Because otherwise, the assumption is that those four all own it, probably as tenants in common. And then this looks like they're granting, the Walshes are granting their interest in that property to Nikki and Todd Greer. I'm wondering why a family transfer is required on this tract.
Well, they could also subdivide.
Well, I guess specifically what I'm asking is, am I reading this plat correctly? That the triangle plus, that's tract A, that is only 11.9 acres?
That's correct.
Not B1 or B2?
Correct.
Well, they're not dividing 11.93 acres, are they?
Well, so what had happened, Bernadette actually owns B1
Okay,
here, and so her family, she had owned also A, and jump in anytime, Bernadette, but then they did a boundary location with Walsh's, and and sold Walsh's this, so then this became a part of the greater. So this survey is what's creating Tract A, or what they're attempting to create Tract A, but Tract A was never actually created. So I don't know if that warranty deed only makes this Tract A be a Benner Walsh property and not all of this, but Tract A is not a standalone property. That's what
Okay.
the purpose of this survey is.
okay, so they're
They're intending to create it as a standalone.
do we have that document for the boundary relocation that basically recreated kind of a horseshoe
Yes.
property then?
I thought that I emailed you that too, I'm sorry if I didn't. Let's see. I'm gonna look back in my emails here.
Yeah, that boundary relocation was done in the 90s, 96 or so, way before we owned it. By Levnos, who were the owners at the time.
So in '06, they acquired, through another warranty deed, they required that other piece as well?
No, Walsh's already owned, here's a copy of the COS from them, I'll put a copy. Walsh's already owned all of this.
Okay,
And they purchased this, and like it says, here's to be annexed to adjoining lands and not to stand alone as a separate tract. And right here, Tract A to be annexed to COS 99967, lands of Walsh.
okay. And what is the date on this thing? '03? But they didn't actually do the deed until '06?
There is a string of deeds.
Was Tract A originally a completely separate lot?
No, not to
No,
my understanding.
no.
It's
It's
always been part of the one
something.
piece.
Yeah, here's the purchaser's interest when
Nicole,
Walsh's
how
bought
do
it
they
from
have a
Levno.
septic system without an address? We just ran into this a couple months ago. Any ideas?
No, they may have just given one. Sean did not issue the septic permit, it was Julie, so it was before Sean. So I don't know, I don't know what they put on. I could pull it and look at it and see what they filled in on there, they may have just picked a number that aligned with what the Walshes and Benners are using currently.
No, okay. I don't think it's that big a deal, it's just, when we cross that bridge, and it seems to me that here's another one popping up on us.
So was there ever a permit issue?
Yeah, there was a septic permit issue.
But it's just like the situation we just had, there's no electricity, there should be no electricity without an address. There is no address, therefore there should be no septic permit. It's all tied up with what we just went through in
Yeah, but
February.
you could put in a septic permit without an address, it was a rental, right?
2018.
I don't think so. I guess I don't know what the San Antonio guidelines are, from my
Because if it's a
understanding.
rental, you're not subdividing the property.
Well, no, but you still need an address,
It
Right.
still needs an address.
because you're not getting it.
It still has to have a permit.
Yeah, and they do have a permit, I just don't know what they used for an address. If they
Was
made
it-
one up, did they tell the power company it's XYZ, and they went with it?
Was the permit issued as it should have been?
Okay, '03. This is crazy.
So when the permit issued, it was issued on the whole piece.
We're just talking about the
Oh.
address that they
Yeah.
were.
Right.
Just the DEQ
Supposed to be
approval on,
address.
on the 19th, is
Because
that,
it was before,
I see this there.
Yes. They just
before the
received the
survey
DEQ
was
approval,
filed,
just
or
in
anything,
the last
so,
couple of months.
and that was an issue that came up.
Would that have
Because
been
they
for their
thought,
septic?
because they had an
Correct.
existing system, they did not have to go
The
through
permit was
DEQ.
just issued for tract A.
Because it
though,
was a
right, for
system
the
put
whole-
on it over
For,
20
like just for
acres.
tract A. it looks like.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm
So it's just a
guessing.
local permit.
Yeah,
So they
Okay.
had to go through state permitting though, before they could divide.
Okay,
And so the DEQ, in theory, would be recorded with this survey, which they have, they follow the proper channels that way.
right.
so they essentially have three septic systems on this piece of ground,
Which they can, because it's greater than 20 acres.
because it's greater than 20 acres.
I mean, as long as there's non-degradation.
So, AFF Services, Inc., there's a warranty deed from them to the Walshes and Benners for this piece of property in November of 2006. There's a warranty deed for the same piece of property to the same people from Gene Levno and Dolores Levno, March 2003. So either they both must have been some kind of undivided joint tenants or something, or they bought the same piece of property twice.
I think the Levnos were the original owners, and it was a purchaser's agreement, so the deed was probably filed in an escrow, and then when it was paid off, was filed, which is, I know that happened on ours. Levnos also carried the loan for the people we bought it from. And so when we went into closing, our deed was filed buying it from the current landowners. And then it was like a week later, the deed was filed from Levnos to them.
Okay.
Afterwards, it's a paperwork deal when a deed is held in escrow, which created a nightmare on our loan.
Because then it would
Yeah.
look like the owner that you bought it from is now the owner because that's the most recent deed.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Or that he didn't own it for us to buy
Oh,
it.
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
But I think during the closing, the documents don't get filed in order. They're delivered to the courthouse in order. But I know with our taxes, that's what it was. Our taxes were messed up for a couple years till we could get it organized with the revenue department that
You really do own it.
we really did own. Yes.
wow,
So I think that's what had happened with that too, because it was the same Lebanon deal.
Well, very interesting.
so another question for you, Nicole, the family transfers from 2 parcels to one family member. Isn't it limited to 1 parcel per lifetime per county?
Yes,
So this is not allowed based on this,
right.
correct?
And I think he may have misunderstood that, because he really is only transferring 1 parcel, or attempting to transfer 1 parcel via the COS, so, I'm thinking, number of parcels proposed, maybe he just looked at the COS and thought an A and a C, I don't know. I didn't have an opportunity to talk to him about it.
Okay,
Is that number F where you're talking about on this?
B, on the front page
Yep.
here. Number
Oh,
of parcels
okay.
proposed.
I know you mentioned again in F too, about 2 different parcels.
yep.
So,
And in C,
20.36.
where he mentions both parcels and their individual acreage.
so 20.36 would be C.
Correct.
Well, so part of the issue here is that if a transfer of 1 parcel goes through, that automatically severs this large thing into two tracks, track A 11.93 and track C 20.36.
Correct.
So he would only need the family transfer to do one of them. Track C would then be a separate parcel legally, and he could sell that or convey it to her without county approval.
Which one?
Whichever one. By severing one of them from the whole and transferring it, it therefore creates the other smaller tract. And so he could transfer that without approval. So, because it's two halves of the same, it really is one family transfer.
It really is one family transfer. The only thing with that, you know, he does state on here that tract A is the one on the survey here. He states that tract A is being transferred to his daughter, Nikki Greer.
Okay. One parcel is being retained with current owner, second parcel is being leased. And so he's planning to transfer A to Nikki and keep C?
That's my understanding of his intention, yes.
Okay. So have you had an actual conversation with them, with John and Janice?
Just John, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a conversation.
Okay.
Well, another question I have is if you read the certificate of subdivision approval by DEQ, which means we're now talking about a subdivision, and you read the very first paragraph where it says relating to the subdivision known as Walsh Family Transfer Tract A, and then you read through the document and you get to the very end where it says pursuant to section 76-4122-2A, which refers you to 76-4125, a person must obtain the approval of both the reviewing authority, which is the planning board and the commission, under Title 76, Chapter 4, and the local health officer, before filing a subdivision plat with the county clerk and recorder. So doesn't that just right there put us on the track of doing a subdivision?
That's pretty much what the DEQ is saying, is that it's a subdivision.
Right, and it's right in their title, Certificate of Subdivision Approval. So we shouldn't even be talking family transfer.
Yeah, they say that for anything. That
That's-
doesn't make it a subdivision.
No, they have a
No.
totally different definition of a subdivision than the subdivision and planning act.
Oh, okay,
Their subdivision is anything under 20 acres. It doesn't matter if it's family transfer, a boundary relocation creates it, or a subdivision. They look at if you create a parcel less than a 20, it's a subdivision no matter what the means are,
okay.
for sanitation.
Okay, and that makes sense, but I still go back to that last paragraph where it directs us to MCA, and if you read 76-4122 and 125, it talks about the need for subdivision review. So, I kinda don't think there's a conversation here.
Well, here's an issue that we haven't talked about yet.
I brought my book if anyone wants to borrow it.
So, this transfer to, where is that deed? To Robin or to Nikki?
To Nikki.
Was done July 2018. And then, I recognize that it has to be approved by the family transfer. They did that before the county had enacted its policy restricting family transfers. And they did it in reliance on the regulations and the county regulations in effect at that time. I'm concerned they have an argument that they'd already done enough in reliance that we can't stop them at this point. It's half done.
But all they did was record the deed. They still haven't recorded the survey.
Did it ever come before the commission?
Not yet.
So then that wouldn't be a family transfer because the commission has to approve that.
Right, yeah. And that's
So-
what's happening Tuesday. It'll be on your agenda. Will
For
be
the first
time.
time.
Mhm.
So that you can't call that a previous family transfer because they never followed the process.
they recorded the deed before they recorded the survey. They recorded a deed on a piece of property that didn't actually exist.
Yeah, they were under the impression they didn't have to do a survey because tract A already had a legal description. So they were under the impression at that point in time that they didn't even need a survey. That they could just transfer it because it was an existing parcel. And we had explained to them, no, it had been created as a parcel to be annexed. It wasn't a standalone parcel. And I don't think they, accepted our.
They didn't
what
wanna
we told them.
listen.
No.
I told
And then
them
I
the same
think
thing.
when the title company told them they could not get a warranty deed for the property because they could not insure it because it hadn't been legally created yet, then that's when they had come back to us again to get a survey.
So you tried to explain the situation, the facts, how it all works, but didn't really get into
Yes,
that.
at that time, yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, there was quite a history coming up to this. They had first approached us that they were selling it and needed the corners found it was so long ago, it was probably a year and a half or so ago. And we explained to them that it wasn't a standalone tract. And that's when they didn't really believe us. And then they called us up, well, they said, go ahead and survey it. I guess, I can't remember all the details, but then they called up and canceled the job and said their sale had fallen through. And then they called us and rehired us to do a family transfer, saying that they were just going to create it for their daughter. And then that's when we started that process and explained to them, well, we have to have DQ, which they thought they had an existing system and that they didn't need that. But then they found out they needed that. So this kind of drug out for a long time.
Yeah,
And then since then, waiting on the DEQ, then I think that's when it came to light that, people were moving in, and the title company called us and wondering, where the survey was and when it was gonna be filed. Those details kind of unraveled at that point in time, waiting on the DEQ.
so it was kind of done backwards. People moved in, title company called and said, hey, where's the pieces we need? It really did start at the backwards piece and kind of move forwards on this.
Well, I
Is
think
that
they were under
accurate?
the impression they had an existing parcel they could just go ahead and sell, and they might have went ahead and did that, and then found out that that couldn't happen that way.
Yeah.
I mean, hindsight, looking back as things unraveled.
Right.
Which led us to today's.
So Nicole, why do you think that this is clearly an evasion of the subdivision act?
Because they are intending, obviously, to sell or something. If they're transferring it to their daughter, and their daughter, Nikki, told me on the phone, which I realize it's my word against hers, but she told me it was not a family transfer. She has no intention of moving up here. It's a subdivision. Oh my gosh, my parents can't afford that. I'll call you back. And so I can't unknow that.
Right, but,
And the gals that are living there are not family, and it's not their home. If the title company is wondering when they can close on the sale of the lot, all of those pieces point to evasion.
so title company is asking that, and who are the parties in that closing?
Is it, which Addie, Rocky
Mountain.
Rocky Mountain Title.
Who are the parties in the closing? Obviously, the Walshes are one of them. Who are they selling to?
Oh, I don't know that. I could call and ask them, but if they're wanting to know when this is
I mean, are
finished,
they
they can
closing,
finalize the
are they
sale.
closing on a sale that's pursuant to a family transfer?
Mhm.
I mean, to Dot or Nikki or to somebody else?
Yeah, I don't know, I could find out, but I guess, just based on my conversation with Nikki, is where I strongly feel that this is evasion.
I mean, if they're conveying it to Nikki, Nikki's not required to live here on it.
Right, no, she
If
can lease
she's
it.
continuing to lease it to
Mhm.
the Giffords, then I guess I see clearly there's a possibility that that's what's going on, but I can't say that we know that. I don't think we can say we know that. I would say let's ask them more questions. Ask them if they're selling it, if they're planning to sell it to, well, the Giffords or anybody else.
But what does the law say? Does the law say that we have to know for factual, on some kind of factual basis they're evading? Or does the law say appearance of evasion?
Well, there needs to be an appearance, if you're saying, if we're gonna say there's an appearance of an evasion, I think let's get our facts a little more solidified. Because otherwise it's, it's a decision that's gonna clearly not stand up. I mean, I'm just saying, let's get our facts verified. Let's find out if they're actually trying to sell it to Giffords and find out the title company who is supposedly buying it, who's the other half of that transaction.
So if the title company is calling and saying they need to know a deed because they need to close on a sale, that makes it not a family land transfer, right?
I don't know. I don't know if they're doing an actual title report on the transfer to Nikki. I mean, I know what's in the papers that we have on our desk, that's all I know. So. I mean, why don't we ask them the questions? Let's see what they say. Cause are they coming to the hearing on Tuesday?
I'm certain. I wanted to wait until this meeting before I called him to let him know.
I guess that's what we're gonna have to ask.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess, you know, you look at this and if their affidavit, let's see here, where is this affidavit?
What was the grounds that we, determined that the Heinemans were doing a family transfer to evade subdivision,
Theirs was boundary location.
boundary relocation, to avoid subdivision, no? And we used the same statute, the same reasoning. We didn't really have much more than the, previous meeting with them, which equates to your phone call and what we've seen so far. We didn't have any proof from a title company. What we did have was just the law in front of us. It seems to me that I don't mind you asking more questions, and that's fine. Certainly don't mind asking Walsh's more questions, but I think when we set that we are going to declare one is an evasion of subdivision, that's a standard that needs to be continued for everyone. I don't think we can, based on who they are, change our opinions. And that's just my opinion on this.
Well, I don't think
But
it's
yeah, if you wanna ask more questions, I'm fine with that. But I don't think for me, it makes any difference.
Well, and the same thing with Dale Price's family transfer.
Right.
It appears to be evasion, and evasion is quite loose and leaves it up to you folks to determine what is and is not evasion. There's no definition of it for a reason.
Right.
Well, every one of these is fact specific. You have to look at the facts. I think that we need some more facts in this particular case. The other ones, both of them were clearly going to produce a multiplication of lots that were going to, they were basically a way to do a subdivision without a subdivision. This is one lot. What his affidavit says is that they or their family member will not sell any of the tracts for a period of 2 years. So, if that is not truthful, then let's ask him.
I do also look at your issue, Mike, with the shared driveway. This could be a nightmare, just like we have over here in the future.
Well, and the issue with this one is that if you put that lot back here and that's the accesses, now you have, essentially you have three houses with a share, with a shared driveway, and a shared driveway is only allowed for two addresses. So are the Benners and the Walsh's address the same?
I don't know, I'd have to look at my map. I don't know what they have for addresses.
And is that a statute for requiring for determining if that's a shared driveway, if it's the same address? So you would only have, but you'd have two addresses on this piece, and you have a third address on this piece.
And so what I do in that instance, is require them to name their driveway. They don't necessarily need to build it to any type of standard, because I have no authority to require them to build it to a standard, but I can require them to name it. And then each of them would have an address off of that new road.
That's a huge problem if tract A has a fire, because you're not getting trucks in and out of there. You can barely get a car in and out of there as it is now.
So are there two houses on track C right now?
Yes. The Benners have theirs kind of at the end of the driveway, and then John and Janice are a little closer to Jack Farm. So I can ask the title company. They might not be able to disclose that to me, but I can certainly make the ask to Addie,
Well, I'd say let's
who they're closing.
ask the Walshes at this meeting.
Right, but I can ask before then too. I mean, I can ask Rocky Mountain Title.
I would like the question beforehand too. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I do think it's interesting that the recipient hasn't signed this thing. This affidavit. Oh, wait,
She
never
did.
mind,
She did,
never
yeah.
mind, different page.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I realize if, if the Giffords are leasing it from Nikki Greer, they can do that.
But it seems like the title company's probably asking about,
A sale.
A sale.
And when Nikki told me, that it's a subdivision, she said it's a subdivision, but they just can't afford it.
Yeah,
That makes it difficult for me to
no, I think all that is concerning.
hear that.
So what would the cost be of the subdivision?
A 2-lot, county fees about 2,000, and then surveying fees, which they've already paid. I mean, for this, to get to this far, I'm sure there would be a fee for you to manipulate it into a subdivision layout as opposed to a COS, and they already have DEQ. And just a little more time, but.
With the road requirement.
Oh, the road requirement, yep, that's right, the road requirement would be a big one, unless they came up with a different driveway. I don't know if, by looking at this, I'm not sure exactly where John and Janice's house is placed, but if they had a different driveway, then the Giffords and Benners could share this driveway back here, and then the Walshes could have a separate driveway to where they wouldn't be sharing, but I don't know topography, I don't know if that's a possibility, but that might be an expense, road construction and engineering.
But when that's the major source of our calls, something we need to put some energy and time into
Right.
is roads and safety, fire.
So
Yeah.
who lives here?
It's currently under construction, no one is occupying that right now.
Do you know who owns it though?
I do. Bernadette's son and daughter-in-law. Jesse Swenson is his name.
So that's not two tracks, that's one?
No, that's two tracks, two separate parcels.
Okay.
But
They
there's
can't
there
come in
were-
off that corner because the ditches run right there,
Right, yeah, the ditch still crosses on the corner of this piece, so they would have to come in on this piece and come back with an easement, where if you look at aerial photography, I know that they may have been historically, but,
I know the previous owners of that were approached for an easement through there. But the family, Brown man.
yeah, I can't, Round Man, what was Round Man's last name, Vern?
Boster.
Boster, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Boster.
He just Round Man.
His family, after Mr. Boster passed away, they were unwilling, I guess, to work up an easement through there because they knew they were gonna be selling it, as the estate was, so. And then, no one has approached Jesse that I'm aware of. But I know that, through the realtor, we were told that the family had been approached for a driveway easement, but they refused. And I know Mr. Walsh had said they were looking at going between the ditches, but then you'd have to cross the Montana ditch, and the people that are there have horses, and to make that sharp of a turn with a horse trailer would be impossible.
Oh, yeah.
And then to get, possibly a bridge permission over the ditch and, because I know we had explained to him, well, the property line kind of goes down the middle of that, so you would probably need an easement from us too, depending on where the driveway was between those two ditches. There's not a lot of room.
Right?
So I know they were looking for different access, but
So Tuesday.
I like family transfers. I think they're a great way to be able to pass property on to your kids. But with anything that's good, if it's abused too much, it becomes bad, and I don't like it there.
Yeah, I am a strong proponent of family transfers when they're used appropriately. So, okay.
Well, thanks, Nicole. You've done some good work.
Thank you. Thanks, Corey, for coming down. Bernadette, thank
Would
you.
you email what you find out?
Yes,
So that we
absolutely.
have that before the meeting? Thank you. And even if they can't tell you who, if they could, well, we already have confirmation that there's a
That
sale
there's
pending.
a sale pending,
Yeah.
right?
And of course, it wouldn't be to Nikki, because that wouldn't make any sense.
Right, and the deed's already recorded.
Yeah.
Okay. I will see some of you across the alleyway.
Yes, you will. I hear you did some baking for us.
I did.
What was it?
Cupcakes.